And welcome back to Saturday Agenda. Well, 8 years ago, Google was in the midst of a surge in its quest to take over the World Wide Web. However, regulators from the Obama White House missed a golden opportunity to stop that spread. Instead of filing a major lawsuit, they opted to stay on the sidelines and lead from behind. Now, this was part of a major story by Politico, and a bipartisan group of lawmakers immediately decried the move. They're now looking into it. Want to bring in our panel. William Chamberlain is the senior counsel of the Internet Accountability Project, and Texas Congressman Michael Burgess has covered issues of these tech giants in his work in the House. Good afternoon to you both. Congressman, I'll start with you. I think a lot of this is difficult for the average person at home to understand, but talk about what could have been done and why it's so important and pertinent to the threat and censorship and big tech top-down leverage that they have over the everyday American.
Well, the missed opportunity during the Obama administration was at the Federal Trade Commission, and there could have been greater oversight into what was going on. For whatever reason, they chose not to. Of course, as you know, later this week, the Committee on Energy and Commerce will be hosting the CEOs of the big tech firms, Facebook, Google, and Twitter. Primary purpose of the hearing is billed as how to stop the flow of disinformation, but I can almost guarantee you this issue will come up. Issues around the so-called Section 230 issues will likely also come up during that hearing.
Now, William, I'll come to you. We know how we got here, this turning the blind eye to big tech while they put themselves in position to be more powerful than the government. Is there anything that we can do now to unring the bell? And is it doing so now going to be more difficult?
Well, I mean, whatever we do at the federal level is going to be more challenging now just because Democrats have both houses of Congress. And so they're really in the pocket of big tech. And so there's going to be a serious challenge there. But there are things generally that, we can think about doing to, both deal with the big tech companies and also protect conservatives' right to speak on the internet. When it comes to the tech companies, if the left is interested in antitrust remedies or tweaking antitrust law to make it easier to go after a Google or a Facebook or a Twitter or something like that, we should be looking to do that. Also, I think that I'm very encouraged by what's happening at the state level with people like what Greg Abbott is doing in Texas, trying to give their citizens effectively a civil right to use major social media platforms. And if they're banned for lawful content, they'll be able to walk into court and sue people. I think that's the right path forward.
Now, Congressman, to that particular point, people on the left, and perhaps rightfully so, we've seen in these school lockdowns where they talk about Wi-Fi being a human right, access to internet being a human right, and yet somehow that human right doesn't necessarily seem to extend to conservatives when we want to voice our opinions, which technically speaking should be in many ways protected by the Constitution, but not also honored in accordance with 230. What are the things you think that we can do to streamline those two thought processes and make sure that the average American person can make sure that their voice can be heard in the internet?
Well, first off, if Section 230 had never come into being or was to go away, the tech companies would quickly argue that they have First Amendment rights, free speech rights. Well, of course they do, and so do conservatives. So the application of that fundamental first item of the Bill of Rights should be applied to citizens, regardless of their political persuasion. And of course, the tech companies would make an argument that it can apply to them as well. We do have to be careful about Section 230. It obviously has allowed a plethora of smaller companies to be to come under development. And the last thing in the world you want to do is to worsen the problem from an antitrust perspective by interfering with newer platforms or newer entrepreneurs who are trying to establish themselves. So there is a protective aspect of 230 that you got to be careful when you begin to change it. So I spent so much time trying to research the history back in 1995, 1996. What was going on? What were the attempts that were being made, and why were they made?
Now, Will, I'll come to you. Is there anything that we can do right now to perhaps even educate some more lawmakers? Obviously, Congressman has a good handle on it, but it seems to me that there are so many people in D.C. That don't seem to appreciate or care about the impact that these decisions that big tech is making have on our everyday lives.
Yeah, I think in general with conservative legislators, I'm not speaking to you, Representative, obviously, but just in general, there's a reluctance to make new law. And, you know, one of the things conservatives do is they want to just apply old law on the books, and they're sort of thought, well, it's like that's what's good, that's what's conservative, and we shouldn't necessarily write new laws to solve our current problems. So as a result, much of the conservative debate around social media censorship has focused on Section 230, which is really not about censorship so much as it's about liability for defamation from third-party users. And so I don't necessarily want to eliminate that, because I think that is the basis for most of these third-party social media. And it's a free speech issue. We need to provide protections for everybody to be able to speak their shield. You do that by creating an affirmative private right of action for individuals to sue Facebook, and too hard to change the law to make that a reality.
All right, Congressman Michael Burgess and